challenges I find is getting to and from this throat B flat in the form of an arpeggio, a B flat arpeggio. So I think what I find the most helpful is to make sure that my wrist position is not too far like this, but rather more like this, so there's very minimal motion. So when we think about hand position on the clarinet, we think about the right hand sort of being dropped down and relax it, and when it has some curve in your fingers like this, instead of coming straight onto the clarinet in a perpendicular fashion, come down a little bit at an angle, and the same with the left hand. Relax the fingers, and when they're nice and relaxed and curved, have the angle slightly diagonal like this. And so the left hand, including the thumb, can be a little bit like this as opposed to straight across where you have to move up and down and literally take your thumb off. Or if you're too straight up and down, then you're a little too close to the clarinet and you'll end up getting less mobility there. So for me, though I try to keep my hands in mostly a similar position when, for instance, in the very last, second to last bar, the last phrase. So I am really trying to stay very, very close to the clarinet and almost keep this F to B flat, kind of almost curve it down so it's almost straight up and down. Not really straight up and down, but I am thinking ahead, which actually is another good thought on this piece and in general when we play, is to think ahead about what's coming up next. So the first big thing I'd like to suggest to practice in this is to just practice your F to B flat. And you might do a little bit of a pattern like this, maybe chromatically down. That slowly over and over. You can isolate just even two notes. The big passage, I'll jump right to it, is in bar 40 and 41. And actually, don't discount bar 42, what comes right after it. So in bar 40, I will play of course, my right-handed E flat, my left-handed C back here. So this is the left-handed C. Many students will use the right-handed C over here, but you also have this option available as well. And so I use that there, but then immediately after the G, the fourth note of the measure, I jump over to my right-handed C. So left-handed C first. Now right-handed C. And then after my F flat, which is the enharmonic of E natural, I go to my left-handed C, because now I have to go to my right-handed E flat. So now the next part, I keep my right hand down a lot until I get to my low F. And my third finger here as well. Some people will prefer to use the 1 and 1 for E flat. E flat is 1, 2, and the side bottom key, but I tend to stick with this one here for most of this piece, in fact all of it. You definitely can use 1 and 1 B flat and it's not a problem. I won't say that I look for the hardest fingering all the time, but I do try to focus on traditional fingerings to make sure that I can really play them well. And then if I can play them well, then I will give myself the sort of luxury of using some alternate fingerings. Let me finish bars 40 and 41 first. So we have the left-handed Cs, right-handed Cs, and then 41 keeping my fingers down. Now 42 into 43. 43 we have a high B flat. And we theoretically could, well not theoretically, you could use a 1 and 1. And that's completely fine, and if that feels comfortable to you, then I would say go ahead and do that, just as long as you work that into your technique. But do know that playing from F to B flat and B flat to D should be comfortable and smooth to you. And if you're using the 1 and 1 because the traditional side B flat is not coming out as smooth, I would encourage you really to go ahead and practice that. I'm going to put a link below here for a good exercise to go through. It's actually a series of pages from the Eugene Gay method book in this particular key of B flat major, and I think it will really, really help you. So as you prepare this piece, please do those exercises over and over, isolate little pieces of them, and work them slowly. Be thinking a lot about your hand position. Your hands should be mostly curved at a diagonal like this. So you want to avoid any tightness like this, or any sort of perpendicular coming into the instrument like that. Another thing in this piece is breathing. So I'm taking some breaths depending on the tempo you take. I would suggest that you take breaths where they feel good, comfortable for you, but take them at the end of a bar and maybe pull the tempo back very, very slightly so we can hear that you're intending to make that a break point. For instance, in bar 47, 46, 47, 48. And then I start back up into my 48 again. When there are held notes, I will tend to take a breath after the held note. In the recordings and the people that I've listened to, many times people will not be taking a breath in bar 52. I did take a breath there because it's a held note and I'm trying to get to the end there without a breath. So again, you're going to have to judge, musically speaking and physically speaking, how much your breath will allow you to play as long a phrase as you'll be allowed to play. Bar 36 has a piano. Please do that dynamic. So in bar 25 where we start, it's forte, and then we are mostly kind of exciting. The feeling is an exciting feeling, flowing, moving along in a 6/8 feel, really kind of in a 2. So everything is divided 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. 6/8 can be counted in multiple ways. In this piece, it's marked allegro vivace, so we're going to feel it in a 2, but you'll always be thinking of the 6 separate eighth notes: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and. So I'd encourage you to practice this slowly with a metronome, making sure that you're getting the counts exactly right. For instance, on the very first bar, you have the high B flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and so make sure that tie is B4 and then come in on the end of B4. And on bar 30, you have a 16th note. So let me start in bar 29. Which, by the way, I'm using, again, we were talking about this earlier, but I'm using the side B flat, but I also can use. And some people's clarinets don't play that note so well because this key may not be in alignment, in adjustment. And so if that's not working correctly, then just use your side B flat. But like I said earlier, you should know both fingerings equally well. And the exercises that I put here as a link below hopefully should help you to practice that combination. So again, getting back to bar 30 and the rest. And so I'm feeling and 3, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and 2, and 3, etc. like that. Let's see if there are any other challenges. In bar 46, he's doing sort of an arpeggiation of the, sort of lower neighbor of the scale. And so don't forget in bar 47 that we have a high E flat. Sometimes the pattern in 6/8 is duples, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and sometimes they're triples. Don't confuse the triples for a triplet. For instance, in bar, let's do 47 and 48. Okay, so here's 47. And then 48. So it shouldn't be. We shouldn't be playing triplets. Remember, eighth notes get a beat. So even though in 48 they're grouped with a tie over 3 notes and then another 3 notes, make sure that you're still playing all 6 beats in that bar. Let me do that once more with some foot tapping. Bar 49, it's okay if you tongue the high D very, very, very lightly if it doesn't want to come out. I also try to tend to use what we call a half hull. So when we overblow an F, the way to get that high D to come out, essentially, is to lift this off and put this pinky down. So F to D. But if I were to just overblow the F, it doesn't want to come out as easily, but it's there, the high D. So what I would say is let this sort of slide down a little bit and put this pinky down here on the E flat, and that will allow that note to come out nice and gently. Do articulate where it's marked. Why? Because it says it in the music, but also because it will help you actually with your pulse and your rhythm and your arpeggios. It actually will help you in your hands. For instance, in bar 42, coming back to that bar, if you articulate, it kind of resets each new group and lets your hands kind of adjust and everything adjust. Watch when this passages skip notes. So many times they're playing a straight ahead arpeggio or scale, but in bar, for instance, let's at bar 54 at the end. So watch in 54. He skips a note and goes in the second beat. He doesn't play an E flat and continue the scale. Any of those little instances, just be careful of those. Don't worry about playing the tempo too fast. If you can't play this up to what it's marked, then I would suggest going ahead and playing it at the tempo that you can play it at comfortably. Technique-wise, if you come out of this set of auditions with 2 little improvements, I would say try to continue to work on this throat F to B flat and this F to B flat. And if you got those 2 and maybe the B flat to the D, I think you'll be a much better clarinet player if you can do those 2 or 3 things. As always, please let me know if you have any questions, and I wish you all good luck.